How do you maintain a stable identity when you are plagued by bouts of depression and anxiety? Well, the first thing we might say is that you can't. You know what I mean? If you're plagued by bouts of depression and anxiety, that does destabilize your identity. So it's almost by definition. But having said that, look, this is when habit and plan and strategy are so useful. So in the periods of depression that I've had, and some of them were long and certainly the most unpleasant experiences of my life. This is when you need a philosophy, let's say, that's allied with your vision and your strategy to sustain you. Because what would happen to me is that, I have a vision, and I suppose the vision is of a world that's better, that's less likely to descend into ideological catastrophe, and where people are more responsible and more awake and more educated and healthier. All of that, a vision of a better world, a world that's less hellish at least, but also a better world, and some sense of what role I might play in that. And so that's very motivating. Like, it's a profound goal to try to make things better. And you can do that locally. You can do that for yourself. You can do that for your family. You can do that for the broader community. And all of that's worth it, man. It's worth making some sacrifices for. It's worth suffering for to some degree. And then you decompose that into the day-to-day and week-to-week strategies and actions that you're undertaking, the plans and the activities that you're putting forward to make that dream a reality, to realize it. And then when the depression and anxiety come along, you think, part of it with depression, it's just bloody endurance. It's like you get up and you work through the next hour. You try to stay on track. You try to implement your strategic plans to the best of your ability. And you hope and you pray that you'll get through it. You'll get through it, and that the darkness will recede. And you stay on track. You eat even though you're not hungry. You get up even though you want to stay in bed. You interact with people even though you'd rather be alone. And it's the benefit of disciplined habits can sustain you. It's like the boat you're rowing in through a terrible storm, leaks and all, and maybe you'll be overwhelmed, but you have the boat and you can row forward, and that's what you've got. And so endurance is a huge part of it. And then I would say with its anxiety, it's the same thing. It's like, or very much the same, as you're terrified and uncertain, but you move ahead to the best of your ability. And again, you operate at least to some degree on hope. And if you haven't got hope, then you've got blind, bloody endurance. And that's all motivated by some sense that you're working towards something that's worthwhile working toward, and that is, well, that's your own long-term well-being, to treat yourself properly. It's the stability and productivity and harmony and health of your family. That's a huge deal. And then it's whatever benefit you can be to the community. And if you have to limp along and drag yourself forward in order to maintain that pathway, then so be it, because it's better than the alternative. So, and I know that you can become depressed enough so that, you're virtually immobilized, but you do what you can to fight it, and then you do what you can to treat it. It's like, have you tried antidepressants? Have you gone to speak to a professional? Have you done what you need to do to investigate the causes of your depression and anxiety? Because often there's physical reasons that might be the case. Like I've learned notoriously that a fair bit of the negative emotion that I experienced seemed to be associated with an autoimmune problem that was associated with food sensitivity. Jesus, like I would have never believed that was possible 10 years ago, even though I had learned by that point that my susceptibility to negative emotion was definitely exacerbated, for example, if I was hungry. So I knew there was some relationship with food, but I had no idea that it was as profound as it turned out to be. And so, and then, well, the other thing you can do too is that as the negative emotion ramps up in intensity, the amount of time that you construe as manageable shrinks. And if you're extremely depressed and anxious, then you may be struggling to get through the day, and then you need a map of what is going to constitute a minimally acceptable day. And that might be one where you've done what you need so that when you wake up tomorrow, things aren't worse, right? You have to keep up with your obligations and your duties at least enough so that you're not degenerating downhill. And the other thing too is that you also learn that you act out the things that you would do when you're normal, even when you're depressed. You don't want to see people. Well, it doesn't matter. You go see them because it's better than not seeing them. And you find when you do see them that it's better, it'll go better than you think, but you can't isolate yourself. And you're anxious, and so you want to avoid. You don't want to go out. You'd rather stay home and sit in the chair and just sit there and like in a frozen position. It's like you can't do that. You have to go out and go grocery shopping and go out and have coffee and all of those things. It doesn't matter whether you enjoy them. It matters that you do them because that's what you do. That's what you do in order to maintain your health. And so a huge part of it is like head down endurance. And that'll get you through bad times, that endurance. It's such an underrepresented virtue, that ability to trudge forward unhappily under a unfairly burdensome load is a testament to character if you can. And it's something that should be encouraged and valued. So, and I'm not making the claim that people who are depressed, who can't get out of bed, lack endurance. Some do and some don't, because depression comes in very varied degrees of intensity, and you can be laid out completely by depression. So I'm not trying to make some arbitrary judgment about who's got endurance and who hasn't. You can't do that from the outside, but I can say that endurance is one of the tools you have to deal with chronic discomfort and pain. And even if you have chronic pain, it's interesting because it's very much allied with depression, by the way. All of the research on chronic pain, back pain, for example, indicates, and chronic pain of all sorts, is that the more you allow your pain to render you inactive, the worse the outcome, including exacerbation of the pain. And depression is a pain disorder. And so that's very much worth thinking about too. It's like move forward, move forward, move forward. And if you need to talk to somebody about what your plan is for the day or the hour or the week, then do that as well. And perhaps you also have to help get the people around you to help a bit. I need a little bit of help getting up in the morning. I need to have breakfast made for me so that all I do when I get up in my terrible state of fog and confusion and terrible anxiety and depression is I have a shower, because that's what happens first. And then the next thing is I eat. And then that's better. At least you're out of bed and moving, and that's a start, So, and then you endure and hope, and that's how it is. And you do the same thing when someone in your family is sick or when you're facing a death. All of that. It's like one bloody foot in front of the other up the hill.